I didn't mind neighbors. I didn't mind rules. I didn't even mind the HOA so long as it stayed out of my way. But Patricia Langford never stayed in her lane. She was the president of the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association, and if she'd had her way, I'd have been bulldozed and replaced with another row of vinyl-sided McMansions years ago. To her, my family farm was a blemish, something unsightly, that clashed with the uniform shrubs and decorative fountains her HOA adored. She'd once called it rural residue, a phrase I still hadn't quite forgiven. Luke Marston, was the last holdout. My land, 27 acres of working soil, was passed down through 5 generations, before paved sidewalks, before HOA bylaws, before Patricia and her pearl-clad power trips. While the neighborhood swallowed everything else, I stood firm. The land was mine. Legally. Historically. Permanently. Or so I thought. It was a Saturday morning when I saw the trespassers. I'd just come back from the county co-op, a fresh sack of feed in the truck bed, and dust still on my boots. As I pulled onto the gravel drive, I noticed them. Rows of gleaming SUVs parked along the edge of my corn rows like they were tailgating a football game. Laughter floated through the breeze. Smoke curled from massive grills. Brightly colored balloons bobbed against tents staked into the ground. Tables, banners, even a bounce house, erected right where I'd tilled the soil just 2 weeks ago. I froze. Blinked. Then stared harder. That was my field. As I approached, I caught sight of Patricia, sun hat, pastel blouse, holding a clipboard like she was conducting a census. She spotted me and smiled as if nothing was amiss. "Luke." "There you are," she called out, weaving through the crowd. "We couldn't find you earlier, but we went ahead and set up for the summer kickoff. Isn't it a perfect spot?" She gestured toward the chaos like she was unveiling a sculpture. I didn't answer. I looked past her. Kids were trampling my squash seedlings. Some guy was leaning against my irrigation valve with a burger in one hand and a beer in the other. Someone had even hung fairy lights across my fencing. "I didn't give you permission," I said. She waved a hand, dismissing the words like gnats. "Oh, it's just for the day. A few hours. We needed space, and your lot's not exactly in use." My jaw tensed. "This is a working farm. And we're working to build a community," she replied sweetly, leaning in as if I hadn't just accused her of trespassing. "You should really think about joining the HOA. We'd love to include you. Events like this, well, they're great for visibility. For connection. Image." I didn't give her the satisfaction of a response. I turned away, surveyed the damage, and felt a slow, seething burn rise in my chest. They'd brought a DJ. They'd brought catered food. They'd dug portable toilets into my backfield. And they had done it all without so much as a call, a note, or the decency of a knock on my door. I wasn't just angry. I was insulted. Karen, because that's who Patricia really was beneath the sun hat and smiles, had decided my land was hers for the taking. She'd exploited my absence, twisted silence into consent, and staged a party on top of my hard-earned labor. But I didn't shout. I didn't curse or make a scene. I turned. I left. Because revenge, when grown right, is like corn in August. It takes time, patience, and just the right conditions. And Patricia Langford had just planted the seeds herself. By Monday morning, the field looked like a battlefield. Charcoal pits scarred the earth. Plastic cups and party skewers littered the rows like confetti after a parade. My freshly laid irrigation line was cracked, likely under the bounce house's stakes. Someone had driven a truck through the edge of my corn. Young stalks snapped like brittle bones. They hadn't just held a party. They'd violated my work. My livelihood. I called the sheriff's office. The deputy who arrived wore an apologetic expression before I even opened my mouth. "Mr. Marston," he said, tipping his hat, "we got a few calls about the event. Looked like a community function. Did you want to file a report?" "I want to file trespassing, vandalism, and illegal use of private property." He scratched his chin. "Far as I understand, it was organized by the HOA. Folks thought it was sanctioned. No real intent to damage. They built a bounce house over my irrigation system." I replied coldly. "Intent or not, They caused thousands in harm. I hear you, he said carefully, but going after the HOA, especially Ms. Langford, won't be easy. She's tight with the town council. Got the mayor on her speed dial. I realized then that the law would be polite, sympathetic, even. But it wouldn't help me. This was personal, and personal conflicts needed personal solutions. Back at the house, I poured a stiff cup of coffee and sat on the porch, watching the afternoon sun crawl across the barn roof. Patricia Langford had made one mistake. She assumed I'd just swallow the disrespect. But I'd been a farmer long enough to know a thing or two about control. You can't force nature, but you can shape it. You can steer it. You can wait for the perfect moment and plant exactly what you need. I opened my contacts list and scrolled to the name I hadn't dialed in months, Javi Morales. Javi and I went back 20 years. He ran a larger farm 2 counties over, managed crews that worked double shifts during harvest season. He picked up on the second ring. Luke? Man, I haven't heard from you in a while. I've got a situation, I said. Need a favor. Big one. How big? I leaned back in the chair. 100 hungry mouths. Maybe more. You still got those field hands working the north plots. He laughed. They just wrapped a contract early. They're looking for something to do, and they always eat like kings. Perfect. Tell them I've got food and land. Wait, he said, curiosity sharpening. Is this that HOA mess you mentioned last year? The woman who wanted to build a dog park on your pasture? The same. She threw a barbecue on my land last weekend. Didn't ask. Damaged equipment. Called it a community event. Silence. Then Javi whistled. Oh man. You want to crash the next one? Not crash, I replied. I want to make it educational. He chuckled darkly. You got it. Just say when and where. That night, I checked the HOA bulletin board online. Sure enough, Patricia had already scheduled a second, Whispering Pines community picnic. Same spot, same setup. 1 week later. No mention of property rights. No acknowledgement that it wasn't hers to give. She was doubling down. Perfect. I spent the next few days preparing, not just repairing the damage, but cleaning the perimeter, clearing old fences, and making space. I wasn't just planning a rebuttal. I was planning a spectacle. Let her bring her DJ, her lawn chairs, and her finger sandwiches. I had something better. A small army of men and women who actually understood land, who respected the soil beneath their feet, and who would happily eat their fill while teaching the HOA a thing or two about ownership. Patricia wanted a party. I'd give her one she'd never forget. Saturday came hot and bright, the kind of late summer heat that baked the soil and made the air shimmer above the fields. By noon, the HOA crowd had returned to the same patch of my land like they owned it. SUVs parked in crooked rows, folding chairs unfurled, and a fresh set of white tents snapping in the wind. This time, they'd gone bigger. A DJ booth thumped with bass. Catering trucks lined the edge of the property. A balloon arch framed a sign that read, Whispering Pines Unity Picnic. Patricia Langford stood at the center of it all, clipboard in one hand, iced lemonade in the other. She wore a wide-brimmed straw hat, oversized sunglasses, and a smug little smile like she'd already forgotten last week's confrontation. I watched from the ridge near my barn. Then I heard it, the low, rising rumble of approaching engines. Javi had come through. Pickup trucks rolled down the dirt road like a convoy, their beds packed with men and women in work shirts, straw hats, and bandanas. Dust billowed behind them in great plumes. One of the tractors brought up the rear, dragging a smoker grill the size of a small car. Some waved. Others simply looked eager. I hopped on my ATV and drove down to meet them. Park by the south gate, I called out as I passed. Don't be shy. This is your land for the day. The farmhands disembarked with coolers in hand, folding tables slung over shoulders, and the kind of quiet energy that fills a place before a thunderstorm. They fanned out fast, efficient, just like on harvest days, setting up their own buffet near the HOA's spread. I rode up to Patricia, just as she finished posing for a group photo. Her smile evaporated. What is this? She demanded. eyeing the stream of workers unloading dishes and drinks like an invading force. "My guests," I said. "Since this is apparently a community event on my land, I figured I'd contribute to the community." "You can't just—" "Oh, but I can," I interrupted, voice calm, steady. "You didn't ask for permission last time. You printed flyers. You built tents. And now you're back. So, I thought I'd join in the fun." Around us, farmhands began helping themselves to the HOA's catering trays, loading paper plates high with grilled chicken, brisket, and potato salad. Patricia's face twisted as one of them dunked a whole cob of corn into her decorative lemonade bowl. She turned toward the sheriff's deputy stationed by the entry path. "Stop them. This is a private event." The deputy, the same one from last week, looked at me. "Is this your property, Mr. Marston?" "Every square inch." He shrugged. "Then you can invite whoever you like." Patricia sputtered. "They're ruining everything." This was supposed to be a community building afternoon. "It still is," I said. "Your community just got a little bigger. And hungrier." The DJ, sensing the shift, flipped tracks to something with twang and steel guitar. Javi picked up a six-string from his truck bed and started strumming along. One of his guys fired up the smoker, and within minutes, a rich, meaty aroma overwhelmed the delicate scent of HOA-approved pulled pork. The HOA guests looked increasingly out of place. Their sandals sank into the tilled dirt. Their pastel picnic wear clashed with the sweat-streaked denim of the farmhands. Some retreated to their cars. Others stood awkwardly by the edges, clinging to their paper cups like life preservers. By 2 p.m., the catered food was gone, devoured. The HOA tables were bare, and the farmhands had taken over the entire West Field with laughter, stories, and the kind of joy that doesn't need a permit. Patricia, arms crossed, stood beside her now empty lemonade stand, seething. "You'll regret this," she hissed under her breath. "You've made yourself a real enemy, Luke." I looked her straight in the eyes, voice level. "No, Patricia. I just reminded you whose land you're standing on." She turned and walked off, her heels sinking into the soft soil with every furious step. And me? I went back to the smoker, poured myself a cold one, and let the satisfaction settle in like a long, slow harvest. But I wasn't done yet. By the following Monday, Whispering Pines was buzzing. Word had spread fast. The HOA message board was a meltdown. Posts ranged from passive-aggressive complaints about unauthorized individuals to open calls for Patricia's resignation. Photos of the farmhand feast had gone viral within the community. One even made it into a local paper with a headline, "Homeowner turns tables on HOA takeover." It would have been funny if it hadn't been so overdue. I was back out repairing irrigation lines when Patricia returned. Her Lexus crept down the gravel drive like it was allergic to dirt. She stepped out slowly, more cautious this time, her sun hat traded for oversized sunglasses and a stiff black blazer that didn't suit the farmland she kept pretending wasn't real. I didn't stop working. "Luke," she said stiffly, "we need to talk." I adjusted the valve, wiped my hands, and stood. "We really don't." She flinched, then composed herself. "Look, I admit, maybe I overstepped. But this is bigger than you or me. The HOA is trying to build a better neighborhood. We need cohesion, events, visibility. Then build it on HOA land," I said. "Not mine." Her jaw tightened. "You humiliated me." I gave her a hard stare. "You invited yourself onto private land, held a party without permission, and ignored my warnings. What did you expect? A fruit basket?" Patricia's facade cracked, just slightly. "This farm, look, it's not part of the vision. It's in the middle of a modern development. You're holding everything back." There it was, the truth, raw and arrogant. But I smiled. "Funny thing about land, Patricia. It doesn't care about visions. It remembers who worked it, who respected it." She hesitated. "Are you threatening legal action?" "No need," I said, reaching into my back pocket and pulling out a folded envelope. "This is your cease and desist. Trespassing, property damage, and unauthorized use of land. My lawyer said it's airtight." She took it without opening it, like it burned her fingers. "You'll regret this," she muttered. I stepped closer.
No.
"What I regret is that you ever thought this land and the people on it were beneath you. You treated it like an empty lot. Like I was just another bump in your blueprint. You forgot. This isn't a cul-de-sac. This is a working farm. My home." She turned, retreating quickly, heels crunching gravel like broken glass. The Lexus door slammed, and the tires skidded as she sped away. And just like that, Patricia Langford was gone, for now. But I knew her type. She'd resurface, likely under a new committee title, maybe with a softer tone and bigger plans. That was fine. I'd be here. Watching. Planting. The following week, I hosted my own barbecue, on my own terms. This time, there were no banners, no curated playlists, and definitely no HOA clipboards. Just hay bales for seating, big pots of slow-cooked chili, ribs smoking on open pits, and pitchers of sweet tea sweating in the sun. Javi came back, along with his crew. A few curious neighbors came too, folks who'd never really stepped onto my land before, who only knew it as that empty lot behind the dog park. They learned something new that day. They saw the work behind the land, the calluses, the equipment, the rhythm of planting and harvest. They met people who lived on the sweat of the soil, not behind gates and rules. And maybe, just maybe, they started to respect it. One elderly neighbor, Mrs. Pennington, came up to me near the end, balancing a paper plate and a glass of lemonade. "I didn't know it was like this," she said. "We just thought, well, it looked abandoned from the road." I smiled. Land only looks quiet when it's doing something important. She nodded, looking out over the rows of green, the freshly repaired irrigation lines, the distant silhouettes of tractors resting in the barn's shadow. "Well," she said, "I hope it stays this way." "It will," I said simply. Because no matter what came next, elections, proposals, complaints, or Karen's inevitable return, this farm would remain. Not just because it was mine, but because it had been earned.